The gentle hum of the transport ship's engines began to fade as Jack Thompson stared out the viewport at his new home. Lumeria's twin moons hung like pearls in the purple sky, casting a soft glow over the planet's famous bioluminescent forests. After 25 years of military service, the sight of something so peaceful almost brought tears to his tired eyes. Jack ran his hand through his graying hair, feeling every bit of his 45 years. The pension papers in his pocket felt heavy, his ticket to a new life. The military had been generous, very generous, considering how many alien conflicts he had helped resolve. Now it was time to find the peace he had spent so long fighting to protect. The spaceport came into view, its crystal towers stretching up toward the stars. Jack watched the other passengers, mostly humans like himself, pressing against the windows to get a better look. But unlike the tourists and traders, he wasn't here for a quick visit. This was going to be home. His retirement plans had surprised many back on Earth. Why Lumeria? They had asked. There are plenty of human colonies, but Jack had seen enough of human colonies during his service. He wanted something different, something truly alien. The travel agent had shown him pictures of Lumeria's glowing forests and floating cities, but it was the reports of the planet's peaceful nature that had caught his attention. No major conflicts in over 300 years. No civil wars. No border disputes. It seemed almost too good to be true. The ship touched down with barely a bump. Jack gathered his few belongings, a duffel bag of clothes, a small box of medals he couldn't bring himself to leave behind, and a datapad containing everything he needed to know about his new home. The other passengers rushed toward the exits, eager to start their adventures, but Jack took his time. He had nowhere to be, no mission to complete, no orders to follow. The feeling was strange, almost uncomfortable. As he walked down the ramp, the air hit him first. It was sweet, like nothing he had ever smelled before. The gravity was slightly lighter than Earth's, making each step feel bouncy and young. Around him, the spaceport buzzed with activity. Tall, graceful Lumerians moved among the human visitors, their skin shifting colors in the moonlight. Some wore the simple robes traditional to their species, while others had adopted human-style clothing. A small group of children, both human and Lumerian, ran past him, laughing and playing some kind of game with floating light orbs. Jack watched them, remembering how many worlds he had visited where different species barely tolerated each other. Here, they seemed to live together without a second thought. The pension officer had called him crazy for choosing Lumeria. "You'll be bored out of your mind," she had said. "No combat sports, no hunting, not even any violent entertainment." She didn't understand. After spending half his life fighting, peace wasn't a punishment, it was a gift. Jack made his way to the customs area, where a bored-looking human officer barely glanced at his papers before waving him through. The Lumerian side of customs was different. The official, tall and elegant with shimmering blue skin, took time to welcome him properly. "We don't get many human retirees," she said, her voice musical and strange. "Most prefer worlds with more excitement." She made it sound like a compliment. "I've had enough excitement," Jack replied, earning a knowing smile. As he stepped out into the main terminal, Jack felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Hope. The weight of his military service, the memories of battles fought and friends lost, seemed lighter here. The bioluminescent plants decorating the terminal pulsed with soft light, almost like a heartbeat. In the distance, through the terminal's massive windows, he could see the famous forests glowing under the twin moons. For the first time since signing his retirement papers, Jack smiled. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for once, that uncertainty didn't feel like a threat. It felt like freedom. Jack's first steps through the spaceport's main hall were interrupted by a soft voice behind him. "Excuse me, but are you perhaps looking for the integration office?" He turned to find himself facing one of the tallest Lumerians he had ever seen. Her skin rippled with shades of silver and blue, and her eyes held an inner light that seemed to dance. "Actually, I am," Jack admitted, checking his datapad, "though I seem to be a bit lost. The Lumerian's face brightened, quite literally, as her skin gave off a gentle glow. "I'm Alia, a cultural integration specialist," she said, her voice carrying musical undertones that made human speech sound flat in comparison. "I noticed you came through the permanent resident line. We don't get many of those, especially not humans traveling alone." Jack found himself studying her features. Unlike many aliens he had met during his military service, Lumerians had a strange beauty about them. Their tall, slender forms and luminescent skin made them appear almost magical. Alia's professional attire, a flowing robe that seemed to catch and reflect light, only added to the effect. "I'm Jack Thompson," he said, extending his hand before remembering that Lumerians might have different customs. But Alia took his hand without hesitation, her skin cool and smooth against his. "Ah, the military retiree. We received your file last week." Her skin flickered with patterns of light that Jack would later learn meant excitement. "I was hoping to be assigned to your case. 25 years of service. You must have so many interesting stories to share." They began walking together through the terminal, Alia pointing out various features of Lumerian architecture. The way she moved was hypnotic, each step flowing into the next like water. Jack found himself having to consciously focus on her words rather than her movement. "Most of our new residents need help adjusting to our day cycles," she explained. "The twin moons mean we have different patterns of light and dark than Earth. And of course, there's the matter of our bioluminescent wildlife. Some humans find it hard to sleep at first with all the natural light." Jack nodded, trying not to stare as her skin shifted through various shades of blue. "I've slept in worse conditions," he said, thinking of his years in space. "Though I have to admit, everything here is more beautiful than I expected." Alia's skin flickered with what might have been pleasure at the compliment. "Wait until you see the residential districts. But first, we should get your documentation processed." She led him to a quiet office away from the main terminal. As they worked through his paperwork, Jack found himself relaxing in Alia's presence. She didn't ask about his military service or the conflicts he had seen, focusing instead on his plans for retirement. When he mentioned his interest in the bioluminescent forests, her eyes lit up. "The outer forests are my favorite places," she said, her voice taking on a dreamy quality. "Each species of plant glows with a different pattern. During the Festival of Lights, we turn off all artificial illumination in the city and let the forest light our celebrations." The way she described her world made Jack feel like he had made the right choice. Here was someone who saw beauty and peace, who took joy in the simple wonder of natural light. It was so different from the military life he had known, where beauty was often just another target to protect or defend. "There," Alia said, finishing the last form. "You're officially a resident of Lumeria." She hesitated for a moment, her skin shifting to a deeper blue. "If you'd like, I could show you some of the residential areas tomorrow. It's part of my job to help new residents find suitable homes." Jack found himself smiling, something he seemed to be doing more often since landing. "I'd like that very much," he said. As they made arrangements to meet the next day, he couldn't help but notice how Alia's skin seemed to glow just a bit brighter. The next morning, Jack stood in the hotel lobby watching streams of colorful light dance across the crystal walls. He had slept better than expected, though the constant soft glow from outside had taken some getting used to. A movement caught his eye, and for a moment, he thought Alia had arrived early. Instead, he found himself looking at someone entirely different. She moved with the same grace as a Lumerian, but was shorter, closer to human height. Her skin had a subtle glow, but it was softer than the bright patterns he had seen on full Lumerians. Most striking were her features, a perfect blend of human and Lumerian traits that made her uniquely beautiful. "You must be Jack Thompson," she said, approaching him with a smile. Her voice carried just a hint of the musical Lumerian tones. "I'm Rose. Alia asked me to help show you around the housing districts today." Jack tried not to stare, but he had never met a human Lumerian hybrid before. "Nice to meet you," he managed, extending his hand. Her grip was warm, unlike the cool touch he had experienced with Alia. "I specialize in helping Earth residents find homes here," Rose explained. "Being half-human myself, I understand what features you might be looking for while still appreciating Lumerian design." Her skin gave off a gentle pink glow as she spoke, something Jack found fascinating. They were joined moments later by Alia, whose tall form seemed to light up the entire lobby. "Ah, good. You've met Rose," she said, her skin shimmering with pleasant patterns. "I thought having both perspectives would be helpful for you, Jack." The three of them set out into the city, with Rose and Alia taking turns pointing out different aspects of Lumerian life. Jack found himself caught between their contrasting but complementary views. Where Alia would explain the cultural significance of a building's design, Rose would point out how it had been modified to accommodate human residents. "Most new arrivals prefer the outer districts," Rose said as they walked through a garden where floating lights danced between trees. "The buildings there blend Earth and Lumerian styles. Plus, you get a better view of the forest." "Though the inner city has more traditional architecture," Alia added, her skin rippling with enthusiasm. "The light patterns in the crystal towers change with the moon's phases. It's quite spectacular during festivals." Jack watched them interact, noticing how they seemed to anticipate each other's thoughts. "You two work together often?" he asked. Rose laughed, a sound that seemed to make her whole body glow. "Alia was my mother's integration specialist when she first arrived from Earth. She's known me since I was born." "Rose is like family," Alia agreed, her skin showing patterns Jack was beginning to recognize as affection. "She helps me understand the human perspective better than any training could." They showed him several homes, each more beautiful than the last, but it was a small house on the edge of the bioluminescent forest that caught Jack's attention. Its design merged Earth comfort with Lumerian aesthetics, crystal walls allowing the natural light to fill every room. "The previous owner was also a human retiree," Rose explained, leading him through the living space. "He had it modified to include some Earth amenities while keeping the traditional Lumerian light chambers." Jack stood at the window, watching the forest pulse with life. Behind him, Rose and Alia discussed the property's features, their voices creating a pleasant harmony. For the first time since arriving, he could truly picture himself living here. "This one," he said, turning back to them. "This feels right." Both women's faces lit up, quite literally, in Alia's case. "Wonderful choice," Rose said, her skin glowing warmly. "The forest is beautiful in all seasons. And you'll have the best view of the light festival," Alia added, her tall form graceful against the crystal walls. As they began discussing the purchase details, Jack realized he had found more than just a home. In less than 2 days on Lumeria, he had met two people who made him feel more welcome than he had felt in years of military service. After settling into his new home, Jack found himself spending more time with both Alia and Rose. They had made it their mission to teach him about Lumerian culture, though each lesson seemed to bring new surprises. Today they sat in his garden, watching the forest lights dance in the distance while sharing their traditional Lumerian meal. "So let me understand this correctly," Jack said, looking between his two companions. "Lumerian marriages usually involve 3 or more partners." He had been studying local customs, but hadn't expected this particular detail. Alia's skin rippled with patterns of light that Jack had learned meant amusement. "Yes, though it's not quite as simple as that. We believe in balanced unions. Each partner brings different strengths and perspectives to the relationship. It's why human Lumerian relationships often struggle at first," Rose added, her subtle glow shifting to a thoughtful blue. "Humans tend to think in pairs, while Lumerians seek harmony through greater numbers." Jack watched as the two women exchanged knowing looks. He had noticed how comfortable they were with each other, how their movements seemed to flow together like a practiced dance. Is that why there aren't many human Lumerian couples? Actually, there are quite a few successful unions, Alia explained, her tall form elegant even while sitting cross-legged on the garden floor. But they usually involve multiple partners. It helps bridge the cultural gap. Rose nodded, her features catching the light in a way that highlighted her mixed heritage. My parents are a good example. My mother, my Lumerian father, and his two Lumerian partners. They make it work because they understand and respect both cultures. Jack found himself fascinated by the concept. In the military, relationships had always seemed straightforward, if complicated by distance and duty. But here was something entirely different, a way of living that challenged everything he thought he knew about love and partnership. The light patterns help, Alia continued, demonstrating by letting her skin shift through various colors. We can't hide our emotions like humans do. Every feeling shows in our glow. As if to prove her point, her skin flickered with a pattern Jack hadn't seen before. That's beautiful, he said without thinking. What does that pattern mean? Rose smiled knowingly but said nothing. Alia's skin shifted to a deeper blue. It means comfort, she said after a moment. Feeling at ease with those around you. The conversation drifted to other topics as they shared the meal. Jack noticed how Rose would occasionally translate Lumerian concepts into terms he could better understand, while Alia would expand on the deeper cultural meanings. They complemented each other perfectly. As the twin moons rose higher, casting their pearl light over the garden, Jack realized something had changed. The peace he had sought in retiring to Lumeria wasn't just in the quiet or the beautiful surroundings. It was in moments like this, sharing time with people who saw the world differently, yet made him feel completely at home. You know, Rose said, breaking a comfortable silence, there's a light festival next week. It's traditional to attend with close friends. Her skin gave off a warm glow as she spoke. We would be honored if you would join us. Alia added, her own skin displaying patterns of hopeful anticipation. Jack looked at them both, these two remarkable women who had helped make Lumeria feel like home in such a short time. I'd like that very much, he said, noticing how both of them seemed to glow brighter at his response. As they sat together in the growing darkness, the forest's bioluminescence creating a magical backdrop, Jack thought about how life could surprise you. He had come to Lumeria looking for peace and quiet. Instead, he had found something far more precious, the possibility of belonging. The evening air filled with the soft music of Lumerian night creatures, and Jack watched his companion's skin shift with patterns of contentment. Sometimes, he realized, the best things in life came in unexpected forms. The Light Festival transformed the city into a world of pure magic. As promised, all artificial lights were turned off, leaving only the natural glow of the forest and the Lumerians themselves to illuminate the night. Jack walked between Alia and Rose, amazed by how their skins seemed to shine brighter in the darkness. The forest knows, Alia explained, her tall form casting subtle patterns of light on the ground as they walked. It responds to the festival, glowing stronger when we approach. True to her words, the trees pulsed with increased brightness as groups of festival-goers passed beneath them. Rose stayed close to Jack's side, her hybrid glow more subtle but no less beautiful. Watch this, she said, reaching out to touch one of the glowing trees. The light followed her hand, creating ripples of brightness that spread through the branches. The trees remember human touch differently than Lumerian. See how the pattern changes. Jack found himself caught between watching the natural light show and stealing glances at his companions. Over the past weeks, he had grown increasingly aware of how much time he spent with them both. What had started as cultural integration had become something deeper, something he hadn't expected to find on this alien world. They reached a clearing where other festival-goers had gathered. Lumerians moved in graceful patterns, their skin creating trails of light in the darkness. Some humans were present too, partnered with Lumerians, their faces lit by the glow of their companions. Would you like to learn the festival dance? Alia asked, her skin showing patterns of invitation. Without waiting for an answer, she took one of his hands while Rose took the other. Don't worry, Rose whispered, her warm touch contrasting with Alia's cool one. Just follow our lead. They moved together, teaching Jack the simple steps of the traditional dance. His military training had never prepared him for anything like this, but somehow it felt natural. Alia's tall form guided him through the turns while Rose helped him match the rhythm of the forest pulse. Other festival goers stopped to watch them, and Jack realized why. The sight of a human dancing with both a Lumerian and a hybrid was probably unusual. But in that moment, with the forest glowing around them, and his companions' light painting patterns in the dark, he didn't care what anyone thought. "You're doing wonderfully," Alia said, her skin showing patterns of joy that made her entire form shine like starlight. Her hand squeezed his gently, cool fingers sending a shiver through his arm. Rose laughed, the sound making her glow brighter. "For someone who claims to have no dance experience, you're quite graceful." Her hand was warm in his, grounding him as Alia's movements became more complex. They danced until the first moon set, leaving only its sister to watch over the festival. Finally, breathless and happy, they found a quiet spot at the edge of the clearing. The forest seemed to curve around them, its light creating a private space just for three. "I never expected this," Jack admitted, looking between them. "When I chose to retire here, I thought I was choosing a quiet life alone." Alia's skin rippled with gentle patterns. "Life has a way of surprising us. Even after centuries of helping humans settle here, you've shown me new ways to see my own world. And you've helped me understand both sides of my heritage better," Rose added, her glow warm and inviting. "Sometimes the best relationships aren't planned. They just grow naturally, like the light in the forest." The three of them sat together, watching the festival continue in the clearing. Jack felt Alia's cool hand rest gently on his shoulder, while Rose leaned comfortably against his side. The forest's glow seemed to embrace them, accepting their unusual triogue as part of its ancient dance. In that moment, surrounded by living light and the two women who had changed his life so completely, Jack understood what true peace felt like. It wasn't the absence of conflict he had sought in retirement. It was the presence of harmony, found in the most unexpected places. The morning after the festival brought unexpected visitors to Jack's home. Three elderly Lumerians, their skin showing the deep, rich patterns that came with age, arrived just as the twin moons were setting. Alia and Rose came with them, both showing signs of nervous anticipation in their glowing patterns. "The Council of Elders has noticed your growing connection," said the oldest Lumerian, his skin rippling with formal patterns. "When three hearts begin to beat as one, tradition requires certain trials to be completed." Jack straightened his posture, military training kicking in automatically. He had read about the trials but hadn't expected to face them so soon. They were an ancient tradition designed to test the compatibility of potential life partners. "We understand you are a warrior of Earth," another elder said, her glow shifting in curious patterns. "But these trials test different kinds of strength. Are you willing to prove your commitment to our ways?" Before Jack could answer, Rose stepped forward, her hybrid glow steady and determined. "I request to face the trials alongside him." Her voice carried the musical quality of her Lumerian heritage, stronger than usual with emotion. "As do I," Alia added, moving to stand on Jack's other side. Her tall form seemed to shine with inner light. "We wish to be tested as one unit, as is traditional." The elder's skin showed patterns of approval. "Very well," the first elder said. "Your trials begin now. The first test is the trial of silence." Without warning, the elders raised their hands, and all light in the room vanished. Even the natural glow of Alia and Rose disappeared, leaving them in perfect darkness. Jack felt their presence on either side of him, but couldn't see them. "For 3 hours, you must remain here, unable to see each other's light patterns," the elder's voice explained. "You must communicate and maintain harmony without the aid of visual cues. This tests your connection beyond the physical." Jack felt a moment of panic. He had grown used to reading his companions' emotions through their light patterns. Now, in the darkness, he would have to rely on other senses. Time passed slowly in the darkness. Jack found himself reaching out, finding Rose's warm hand on one side and Alia's cool touch on the other. They sat together, sometimes speaking softly, sometimes just existing in comfortable silence. Rose began humming an old Earth song she had learned from her human mother. Without seeing her, Jack could picture her gentle smile. Alia joined in, adding the harmonic undertones of Lumerian music. Jack listened, amazed at how they could create such beauty even in darkness. "Tell us about the stars," Alia whispered. "What was it like, flying among them?" In the darkness, Jack found himself sharing stories he had never told anyone. Not about battles or missions, but about the quiet moments in space, the beauty of nebulae, the peace of distant galaxies, the way Earth looked from far away. Rose's hand squeezed his when he spoke of loneliness, while Alia's cool fingers traced patterns of comfort on his palm. They shared their own stories. Rose's experience growing up between two worlds, Alia's years helping others find their place on Lumeria. When the 3 hours ended, light flooded back into the room. The elders stood watching, their skin showing patterns of satisfaction. "You have passed the first trial," the female elder announced. "You maintained harmony without relying on our traditional forms of communication, but there are more trials to come." Jack looked at his companions, seeing their light patterns return to normal. Rose glowed with quiet pride, while Alia's skin showed complex patterns of joy and relief. "The next trials will test your ability to adapt, to compromise, and to grow together," the first elder explained. "They will not be easy. Each will challenge you in different ways." "We're ready," Jack said, feeling both women's hands still in his. Their three-way grip tightened slightly, a silent promise of support. The elders nodded, their skin showing patterns of respect. "Then prepare yourselves. Tomorrow brings the trial of harmony, and after that, the trial of truth. May your lights guide each other through the challenges ahead." The trial of harmony began at sunrise the next day. The elders led Jack, Alia, and Rose to the heart of the bioluminescent forest, where the trees glowed with ancient power. The challenge seemed simple at first. They had to walk through the forest together, with their movements causing the trees to create a single, harmonious light pattern. "Your steps must be as one," the eldest explained. "Your hearts must beat in rhythm. The forest will respond to your unity, or lack thereof." His skin glowed with serious patterns that reflected off the trees. They started walking, but their first attempts created chaotic patterns in the forest's light. Jack's military stride clashed with Alia's flowing movement, while Rose tried to bridge the gap between them. The trees flickered erratically, showing their disharmony. "Wait," Rose said, her hybrid glow pulsing gently. "Let's try something different." She took both their hands, creating a physical connection between them. "Feel each other's movements. Don't try to match them. Blend with them." Jack relaxed his rigid posture, letting himself feel the natural flow of Alia's graceful steps. Rose guided them, her unique understanding of both human and Lumerian ways, helping to create a bridge between their different styles. Slowly, the forest's light began to change. As they moved together, the trees started pulsing in a single, beautiful pattern. Alia's tall form swayed like a willow in the wind, while Jack's strength provided a steady foundation. Rose moved between them, connecting their energies like a living conductor. The trial of truth came next, held in a crystal chamber where the walls themselves could detect deception. Each of them had to speak their true feelings, their fears, and their hopes for their future together. "I was afraid of being alone," Jack admitted, watching the crystal walls reflect his words in patterns of light. "After leaving the military, I thought isolation was all I deserved. But you both showed me there was another way to find peace." Alia's skin rippled with emotion as she spoke next. "I feared my position as an integration specialist would make any personal connections seem inappropriate. But watching you both challenge our traditions while respecting them has given me courage." Rose's glow intensified as she shared her truth. "Growing up between worlds, I never felt I fully belonged anywhere. But with you both, I don't have to choose sides. We create our own belonging. The crystal walls sang with the truth of their words, creating harmonies that the elders said they hadn't heard in generations. The chamber filled with light that matched the patterns of their combined emotions. The final challenge tested their ability to face difficulty together. The elders created illusions of various hardships they might face: cultural misunderstandings, public disapproval, the challenges of blending different worlds. Through each scenario, they stood together. When faced with imagined critics, Jack's military discipline helped them stand firm. Alia's deep understanding of Lumerian culture helped them navigate complex social situations. Rose's ability to see both perspectives helped them find creative solutions. As the last illusion faded, the three elders gathered before them. Their skin showed patterns that even Alia said she had never seen before, ancient symbols of approval and blessing. In all my years, the oldest elder said, his voice carrying the weight of centuries, I have never seen three beings from different worlds move in such harmony. Your light patterns complement each other in ways we didn't think possible. You have not just passed the trials, the female elder added, her skin glowing with joy. You have shown us new possibilities for understanding between our peoples. The third elder stepped forward, touching each of their foreheads in turn. Where his finger touched, a small point of light remained, a traditional mark of blessing. What was born of chance has grown into something remarkable. You have our blessing to form a union. Jack looked at his companions, seeing his own joy reflected in their glowing patterns. Alia stood tall and proud, her skin showing complex patterns of love and happiness. Rose's hybrid glow pulsed with warmth and affection. Together, their light created something entirely new, not human, not Lumerian, but uniquely their own. The bonding ceremony took place during the joining of the twin moons, a rare event that happened only once every few years. The entire city gathered in the great crystal amphitheater, its walls designed to amplify the natural light of the Lumerians present. Jack stood in traditional Earth formal wear, modified with crystal accents that caught and reflected the light around him. Rose appeared first, walking down a path lined with glowing flowers. She wore a dress that seemed to capture both her human and Lumerian heritage, flowing like water but glowing with inner light. Her hybrid nature had never been more beautiful, her skin casting warm patterns that made the flowers pulse in response. Alia followed, her tall form dressed in traditional Lumerian robes that seemed to be made of light itself. Her skin displayed the complex patterns of joy that Jack had come to love, creating waves of color that rippled through the air around her. The assembled crowd's own patterns shifted in response to her happiness. The eldest of the three officiating elders stepped forward, his ancient skin showing patterns so deep and rich they seemed to hold centuries of wisdom. Today, we witnessed something unique, his voice carried across the amphitheater. A union that bridges not just two worlds, but three different ways of being. The female elder joined him, adding her own light to the ceremony. From Earth, we have a warrior who sought peace and found love. From Lumeria, we have a guide who helped others find their path and discovered her own. And between them, we have one who carries both worlds in her heart. The third elder completed the triangle around them. Their trials have proved their harmony. Now they will share their light with all who witness. Jack took his position between his two brides. The ceremony began with Earth traditions, the exchange of rings, though these were made of crystal that caught and reflected their bearer's light. He placed one on each of their hands, watching as the crystals began to glow with shared warmth. Next came the Lumerian bonding ritual. Alia led them in the traditional movements, their steps creating patterns of light that spread across the amphitheater floor. The assembled crowd joined in, their combined glow rising up through the crystal walls until the entire structure seemed alive with light. Rose brought the ceremony to its peak, combining both traditions in a way only she could. She began to sing, her voice carrying both human words and Lumerian harmonies. The song spoke of bridges between worlds, of love that transcended species, of peace found in unexpected places. The three elders raised their hands, sending beams of pure light that connected Jack, Alia, and Rose in a triangle of energy. "Let all who witness see your light shine as one," they spoke in unison. "Let your union be a beacon of hope for others who seek to bridge the gaps between worlds." The crystal walls of the amphitheater amplified their combined light patterns, creating a display that those present would talk about for years to come. Human guests gasped in wonder, while Lumerian observers' skin showed patterns of awe that many had never seen before. When the light faded, the three of them stood transformed. A small crystal had formed where their energy merged, splitting into three perfect pieces, one for each of them. These would serve as their bonding symbols, growing warmer when they were together and glowing with shared emotions. "The union is complete," the eldest announced, his voice filled with joy. "May your lights shine together through all the days to come." The celebration that followed mixed traditions from both worlds. Human music played alongside Lumerian light songs. The forest itself seemed to join the celebration, its trees glowing brighter than usual as if blessing the unusual union. Jack danced with both his wives, his movements now naturally blending with their different styles. Alia's tall form moved with grace while Rose's hybrid nature let her switch effortlessly between Earth and Lumerian dance steps. Together, they created something new and beautiful. As the twin moons reached their closest point overhead, casting double shadows through the crystal walls, Jack looked at his new family. In their faces, one fully Lumerian, one beautifully hybrid, he saw his future. It was brighter than any he could have imagined when he first chose to retire on this distant world. 1 year after the bonding ceremony, their home at the edge of the bioluminescent forest had become a symbol of successful integration between worlds. The crystal windows glowed with the combined light of all three residents, creating patterns that brought visitors from across the galaxy to witness their harmony. Jack sat in their garden, watching as Alia taught a group of newly arrived humans about Lumerian customs. Her tall form moved with grace as she demonstrated the traditional light-sharing greetings. Her skin showed patterns of joy when her students successfully copied the movements. Rose worked nearby, helping a mixed group of human and Lumerian children understand both cultures. Her hybrid nature made her the perfect teacher, able to explain complex concepts in ways both species could understand. Her warm glow brightened whenever a child made a breakthrough in understanding. "And that's how both cultures view family," Rose was saying to her young audience. "Different on the surface, but with the same core values of love and support." The children watched in fascination as her skin shifted between human and Lumerian patterns of expression. Their home had naturally evolved into a cultural center, though nothing like the formal institutions in the city. People came to see how three different beings could live together in such harmony. They stayed to learn how to build bridges between their own worlds. "The forest responds differently to each of us," Alia explained to her group, demonstrating how the tree's light changed with her touch. "But when we move together, it creates something entirely new." She gestured for Jack to join her. He stood from his garden seat, years of military stiffness now softened by months of learning Lumerian movement. Together with Alia, they walked among the trees, their combined presence creating beautiful patterns in the forest's light. The new arrivals watched in wonder as the lights danced around them. Rose joined them, completing their trio. The forest's response intensified, creating a light show that rippled through the branches and into the evening sky. Their students gasped in appreciation, their own skin patterns showing amazement. "It's like this with everything," Jack explained to the group, his voice carrying the calm confidence of someone who had found his true place. "Whether it's customs, traditions, or daily life, we don't try to erase our differences. We learn to make them work together." Later that evening, after their visitors had left, the three of them sat in their favorite spot on the balcony. The twin moons cast their pearl light over the forest, mixing with the natural glow of their home. Jack's retirement pay had been more than enough to create this sanctuary where all three of them could thrive. "Another successful day," Rose said, her warm presence fitting perfectly between Jack's solid strength and Alia's elegant height. Her hybrid glow pulsed with contentment. Alia's skin showed patterns of thoughtful happiness. I never imagined my work as an integration specialist would lead to this. We're helping others in ways the official programs never could. Jack looked at his wives, marveling at how their different kinds of beauty complemented each other. Alia's tall, graceful form and complex light patterns. Rose's perfect blend of human and Lemurian features. Together, they made his life feel complete in ways he had never expected. "Remember when I first arrived?" he asked, smiling at the memory. "I thought I was retiring to a quiet life alone." Both women laughed, their lights brightening in unison. The crystal pieces they wore from their bonding day caught the light, glowing with shared emotion. "The best plans," Rose said, squeezing his hand, "are the ones life makes for us. And the best families," Alia added, her skin showing deep patterns of love, "are the ones that surprise us with their possibility." The forest pulsed gently below them, its light a constant reminder of the harmony they have found. Jack Thompson, once a warrior of Earth, had indeed found peace in his retirement. But it wasn't the solitary peace he had sought. Instead, he had found something far better. A love that bridged worlds and a purpose that continued to light the way for others.